Then we had our own senator here in California, Alex Padilla. He deliberately did not wear his identification. In fact, nobody knows. I don't know if I saw Alex Padilla on television. I wouldn't know he was our senator. He's never done anything. But nevertheless, he had no identification. He heard that Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, was going to have a press conference. He barges in. He disrupts it. He tries to make a scene. And what happens? The Secret Service doesn't know who he is either, so they restrain him, and then he becomes a folk hero with his street performance. Unfortunately for Mr. Padilla, he thought it would be a Cory Booker moment. Remember Cory Booker, 25 hours to filibuster nothing? There was no impending law. It was just Donald Trump is evil for 25 hours. He thought he would get the same media attention. But unfortunately, there was the No Kings Parade and the war in Iran, and nobody really knew much about what he had done other than he'd made a complete fool out of himself.
I hope you guys heard that, because I forget that the desktop audio is not necessarily picked up when I'm playing a clip that is saved as an opening clip, and I forgot to turn on the desktop audio before I started playing that clip, so I hope that came in all right. But luckily there are subtitles anyway, so at least if it didn't, you can read it, although it wouldn't be as funny. But anyway, I did mention this last time, and by golly, we're going to do it, because I have very rarely been able to do funny episodes, or at least episodes with at least a tinge of humorous stuff by comparison to mostly serious information. So I didn't have to look. Obviously, it was just some stuff that has gone on this week that has been honestly ridiculous to the point of being pretty freaking hilarious. And honestly, it just kind of kept coming. So I was like, okay, why don't we just focus on this stuff? Because I have been just on some really serious subjects, and we'll probably end up going back to those pretty soon. And unfortunately, that's just the nature of it, especially with the developing situation from Israel and Iran and our potential involvement there. And I won't go too far into it, obviously, because I said I was going to discuss the unfortunate and it's still pretty controversial interview with Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson, which was just if you just ask me, that ultimately, I mean, I will probably talk about it, but it was just so unnecessary that whole thing even went down in the first place. So unfortunately, that's the way things go sometimes. But nevertheless, I have some pretty. At this point, I think it's pretty safe to say I have a pretty solid opinion about what I think about the situation, and I really am not happy about. Not that. How do I put it? Not people's opinion on it, but that. There's a lot of people that are completely just jumping to a certain conclusion based on past evidence and past situations, and nothing at all involving the current situation or even the current president or anything like that. So I don't like the way that's been represented, especially considering who. Well, I'll put it this way: when you're trying to base your argument on a comparison between Donald Trump and George W. Bush, I would say right off the bat the whole argument's falling apart, because those two have nothing in common as far as the way they have run their respective presidencies. So right off the bat, you're starting on faulty territory, and there's one person who I won't name. I don't want to go into it too far. I'm already going too far into it. There's some people that are really getting under my skin and annoying the hell out of me. And I've talked about them before, but we'll talk about them again later. Anyway, excuse me. But nevertheless, there's some pretty interesting stuff going on in the fallout of the whole. Well, first off, the fallout from the No Kings rallies, which were just a total shit show. I mean, nothing came of them, other than a bunch of lunatics that had their day of fun, I guess. Unfortunately, someone got shot, and it was an innocent bystander, and it was a guy that was trying to shoot somebody else. So, I mean, flashbacks of January 6th and Officer Byrd are kind of flying through the back of my head at the same time. Of only, once again, there's at least cause in this case where they're not even going to talk about this one, and that one they also didn't want to talk about it. But anytime they did, they disgustingly made Ashley Babbitt out to be some kind of out of control protester, rioter, insurrectionist, whatever the hell they call her. And it's disgusting, and it's even more disgusting. They had her mother arrested for being on Capitol grounds at one point, and her mother's not supposed to be at the people's house, I guess. The mother of a former United States member of the armed services and veteran, and came to the Capitol on a day where she was entering the building from a window that had been broken, but she didn't break it, and people had been coming in through that window for a decent amount of time, and for some reason this guy just thought, oh, that's the one I'll shoot. Okay. And there's never really been any explanation beyond that, so it's pretty sick. But anyway, not enough of that depressing stuff. Well, it's still depressing for the No Kings rally, but at the same time, it is a testament to, like when you look back at the Rittenhouse situation, there was the only two people that were killed were people who were actively trying to attack and potentially kill Kyle, and one of them even that was potentially, and a third one who was potentially trying to kill Kyle also was shot but wasn't killed because he got shot through the bicep, and that guy got made to look like the fool that he was on the stand when they asked him questions about the shooting. And I still remember to this day the attorneys, as soon as he had answered the question that because he had a gun in his waist, and Kyle had aimed the gun at him, and he had put his hands up initially, and as soon as he took his sights off of Gage Grosskreutz, as far as if I remember correctly, Mr. Grosskreutz, who's gone on to make a wonderful use of his time, by the way. He got rearrested for, I think, drunk driving, and so, stand-up citizen. Anyway, he had mentioned that he put his hands up, and that was what the prosecution were trying to hinge everything on. Then the defense just asked a simple question, and then did you reach for your gun again? And he's like, yes. And that's when Mr. Rittenhouse fired on you, was only after you went to go reach for your gun again? And he's like, yes, sir. And now is when his attorneys were like, oh, no. You could just tell they were like, oh boy, no, they got it. They got it figured out. Oh no, because it was true. It was he was acting like a fucking little coward, and just about every other, like jump kick man and skateboard guy, and I don't even remember their names anymore. I just remember them by what they did, except for of course the guy who survived, because he survived and made an ass out of himself and then got arrested for drunk driving. So beautiful. But anyway, in this situation, there's not a lot that's known. The only things that have been really released about it were that there's supposedly a group of people they were using as some kind of security of sorts. It seems like the worst security you could ever get, but there was some kind of security that were there that were armed, and they were apparently what was the chain of events? It was like well, they'd seen a guy who had a rifle on him, but it wasn't pointing at anyone. Wasn't even really. I think it was slung on his shoulder. It wasn't even something he was holding or anything. But they just saw that he had a gun, and apparently that was enough to have the supposed and so-called security that they had at the event to get them riled up enough to shoot the guy, I guess. And then as soon as they went to go shoot him, they missed and hit a guy. I think they hit him too. I heard conflicting stories. One said they hit the guy with the gun, but he survived. But they hit an innocent bystander who actually was killed. And so the whole thing is just, once again, the whole event was ridiculous. And I mean, you can tell by the cast of characters that were speaking at this event, like Michael Ruffalo, the dumb dork that's from Hollywood that plays the Hulk in the Avengers movies now, and well, he's a real piece of work. He's one of the real strong Palestine defenders, and he got up and compared Donald Trump to. My favorite one was he called him Kim Jong-un. I was like, Kim Jong-un, huh? Yeah, man. What a mix of cultures you have in that name. But he's just not very well read, I would say, by judging by his short speech. I'm not going to look at that stupid crap, but I would make mention of it because it's it's a great example, because the only other people I watched were like people like Eric Banging Fang Swalwell, and then there was also there was one other senator, I can't remember who it was, but another nobody loser who got up in front of a bunch of people and just continued to be an annoying doomsday calling little whiner that oh no, this is becoming a fascist country with a dictator. So the usual talking points that mean nothing. But anyway, that's not the real interesting point, because as was talked about in the intro clip, there's a lot of stuff that was attempted to go on, and meanwhile, as that attempted event was going on, when these attempted events were going on, there was this big No Kings riot, and then there was all this stuff going on across the country. And during that, there's also still the riots going on in Los Angeles. I don't really know. I haven't heard any new information about anything substantial that's been going on down there for the last 3 or 4 days, I'd say. So I have no idea what kind of state the city's in. I'm guessing if it's calmed down at all, it's just going to be a very, very depressing ghost town almost, just like Minnesota turned out to be, unfortunately, after the St. Floyd riots. But the other events that were going on that were a little bit more, I'll say, important, I guess, in general for everyone in the country, were things like the incident with Senator Padilla, of course. But there's also a hearing we were able to have, and the Congress, actually two, in the Senate that were involved. One was involving the auto pen during the Joe Biden administration. That one was very, very interesting. And the other one was yet another situation where they're dragging Pete Hegseth in front of the firing squad to be, to face the execution by Senate tongue lashing for who knows how long of a session it was. But there's a couple that I really think need to be highlighted because they're just. Well, where should I start? Should I start with I guess I should probably start with the Senator Padilla thing, since we could just do a quick follow-up on that one, and it's not super long. But I didn't even get to catch this. And the important part that I think is highlighted in this clip is, I've talked about this before, and it's something that you can watch and see essentially happen consistently over and over again. Anytime there's a story that the Democrats are really passionate about and they really want to spotlight, but they don't want to say the wrong thing, and leadership, I'm sure, is too in control to just allow anyone to just say anything they want. God forbid anybody have their own opinions of the Democrat Party or be able to express them if you're a member of the party. So you have to use the pre-approved talking points. And it's always funny because they use talking points that are so similar, that have to be so similar that you literally watch the same speech over and over and over again. And I've talked about this before. The first instance where I really noticed this getting so intensely out of hand was during the Harris campaign, and the description of the event when you watched any leftist news channel. It was like, this is a real electric crowd tonight. There was real electricity in the crowd tonight. This crowd was so electric when we got to see Kamala Harris. Like, they just kept using that word over and over again. And it's another example of that in this clip because, once again, it's like somebody actually wrote most of this, or at least wrote the bullet points and told you have to stick to certain talking points and specific phrases and words, even if they're ad-libbing any of it, which most of them probably aren't because they're on teleprompter. But and there's people that are more skilled than others at reading off teleprompter, obviously, but these people aren't even good at that. And it's easy to tell when they start talking that they're really just reading notes, and it's just in a really robotic, milquetoast, no emotion or energy to speak of. But there's some powerful words in there, so that's good enough, right? No, it just doesn't work. But I'll tell you this: Senator Padilla got up in front of the Senate and really tried his best to put on his emotional sounding fear and sadness he just couldn't contain. It's pathetic. And then once again, the reason that intro clip was perfect, because then we get then we get Sparticus himself coming up next. We get to Cory Booker, who is not quite as good as like someone like a Tim Walz, who's always like this, flailing his limbs around like an idiot. But Cory Booker emotes with his hands in ways that are like he's shadow boxing or something. Like he's like maybe not shadow boxing, but like really furiously just swinging him around and trying to hit someone or something. Like he really looks like he needs to hit the punching bag or something. I don't know. Like there's something where he's got some really seriously built up energy. Maybe he's drinking too much caffeine. I don't know. But whatever's going on with Cory Booker, it's not good, because the guy has no control over himself whatsoever, and yet he just looks like a total idiot, and he sounds like a total idiot. And I mean, I swear he can't pull it off because he's obviously a big guy. You can see that when he stands next to most of the other people in the Senate. He's a very big, as far as tall individual, and so for him and his large frame and his small head and very limited vocabulary to constantly be switching between this very emotionally sensitive man who also has a streak of Sparticus in him, that it just is jarring to go back and forth from these two characters, and it makes no sense, and yet he sticks with it. So he's featured in here too, but we'll get to this whole thing. It's just a compilation clip of the event, of the speeches in the Senate floor, and then of the news coverage of the event, because it is just it's stupid as hell, but it's comedy that's flawless, but it's stupid as hell. So let me make sure I have the right clip that I'm looking at here, and we'll start with that, and then we'll go into some of the more some of the newer stuff that's going on. But this is just a way to close this situation, because I'm more than ready to get rid of, be done with the Senator Padilla garbage. But this is just too hilarious to pass up. So let me just make sure I'm looking at the right clip, because I have a couple of these, and I think I forgot to delete the one from last time. So okay, let's see. Oh no, this isn't the right one. This one does have Booker, and I forgot it has the worst of the worst on this clip. It has none other than Shifty Schiff himself. Oh Lord, you want to talk about rage-inducing? My God, that man is that thing. Whatever he is, it's like some sort of AI programming to make everyone in the country angry as soon as they hear him speak. He is such a condescending piece of trash, I swear. There's no one lower than that guy. Not a single person in Congress, not a single person in the Senate, no one even I've seen as a staffer or as elected official of any kind. He is the worst of the worst. He does have competition, but he usually pretty handily wins with whatever he has to say, and it's not... It's a disgrace. I'll just put it that way. It's an absolute disgrace. I think this is it. I'm pretty positive this is it. Yeah, this should be it, because it has Senator Padilla's speech. Yeah, there's Cory Booker's speech, and then it should be... Oh yeah, because this was on Matt Walsh. There we go. Okay, yeah, this is it. Okay, found it. Because Matt Walsh noticed the same pattern. I honestly I can't remember who I saw talk about this first, but it was somebody that didn't have and credit where credit's due. I don't know where Matt or the Daily Wire crew or whoever found this clip, or if they made it themselves, but wherever it came from, kudos, because this is one of those things that I always was hoping we would see in a pretty big, long format where there's several examples back to back to back, and they all are doing the exact same sort of routine I was talking about. And sure enough, that's exactly what we have here. But let me just full screen this, and then we'll see exactly what I'm talking about, and we can all enjoy it together. So first, let's watch this riveting and harrowing tale of Senator Padilla's struggle with Secret Service and law enforcement, who had the gall to make him put his hands behind his back and get cuffed like a common criminal. How dare they? How dare that? Usually he wants to make sure that the other common criminals aren't getting locked up, and now here he is getting locked? Come on now. This is horrible. How dare you? Anyway, let's listen to the little pussy.
You've seen the video.
Oh, we have.
I was pushed and pulled.
Yeah, see, here we go. Here we go.
Maintain my balance.
Oh my God. He struggles to maintain his balance. Oh, the poor guy. My goodness. He struggled to maintain his balance while he was shoving the officers and trying to push his way to the stage. My goodness. Oh, you poor thing. Oh, you poor thing.
I was forced to the ground. First on my knees.
Oh my God.
And then flat on my chest.
Oh my.
And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway,
No.
repeatedly asking, why am I being detained?
Gee, I wonder why.
Not once did they tell me why.
And this
Oh, I think
son
you can
of
figure it out.
Mexican immigrants who clean homes and serve
Oh, here
food.
we go.
This man with equal dignity in this body today was driven violently to his knees.
To his
As
knees.
if made to kneel before the authority of the executive.
Yeah, because he broke
Because
the
he
law.
was so-called disrespectful.
No, because he was
That
trying
should
to
offend the
rush the
consciousness,
stage.
not just of the other 99 members of this body. It should offend the conscience of this country.
Well, it doesn't. Sorry.
Because if you can make Alex Padilla forcibly kneel before this executive, when does it stop?
When you stop forcing
He's a
your
United
way
States
into.
senator.
So they justified arresting the leading presidential candidate for fake crimes.
Yeah. They seem to have forgotten about that. About, I would say that's a little worse than being forced to my knees and then on my stomach and then being handcuffed and never being answered when I asked, what is it that I have done wrong? They seem to have forgotten how they slapped a bunch of fake charges on the presidential candidate of the opposing party and forced him into a fucking courtroom over and over and over and over again. We should have been on the campaign trail, and nobody ever, gave him the grace to tell him what exactly it was. No one even told him what he did wrong when they had the jury find him guilty on whatever it was that he was guilty of. They just found him guilty. So yeah, I mean, call me a little cynical, but fuck you, Cory Booker. You're a fucking piece of shit. Jesus. I'm sorry. Oh goodness, I don't mean to go off this bad, but like the absolute temerity of these people when they do worse on a daily basis for everything they ever bitch and moan about, and here they are doing the same thing again, and they can't even remember how, according to them, on every chance they get, the convicted felon that they kept. That convicted felon, Donald Trump, how dare you? Okay, yeah, that's nice, but guess what? We elected that convicted felon, and we still all approve of that convicted felon a lot more than we approve of the terrible, terrible job you guys are doing at supposedly governing anything or legislating anything. And we're supposed to feel sorry for you in this situation when you didn't even spend 5 minutes behind. And by the way, you know what else I heard that was really interesting? I heard this from Kristi Noem herself. When she found out who it was finally that was causing a scene, she met with him after she was done speaking. And they had a conversation where they didn't really agree on a lot, but they had a substantive discussion about the situation. And according to her, it was very amicable, and there was no hard feelings. And then after that, he gets up and he does this shit. It's perfect. It's perfect. It makes no sense unless you think like a Democrat. Oh, we've been persecuted by by those evil Secret Service members. You remember the video? You remember how he's seriously pushing his way, or attempting to push his way past Secret Service to rush the stage of of the appointed Secretary of Homeland Defense, and he's asking why he's being detained, and they won't tell him. And of course, the whole sanctity of police officers and law enforcement, that only applies when it's when it's January 6th. Any other day, it's like, no, then that's not something that counts, because you notice how there's no thanks for them keeping Kristi Noem safe, or no thanks for them keeping the country safe from the illegals trying to cross the border or anything like that. No. It's only the Capitol Police, whom, by the way, their police chief, they really didn't like him, and he can be thrown under the bus too. But Capitol Police that were there on the 6th, unless they disagree with the Democrats, then they don't like him either. But like, there's so many rules to this pro authority sort of Democrat Party. You have to fit very specific criteria, and obviously these Secret Service agents, they weren't anywhere near that. But yeah, and Kristi Noem, as I was just saying, she actually was able to have a good discussion. But then he goes and he pulls this, and he doesn't tell anybody about it, doesn't mention it, and doesn't tell any of the news stations that are dying to interview him, because he's got this harrowing tale to tell now. But yeah, so I had to get that part out, because it's so stupid. It's so stupid after what they do for them to expect sympathy in kind for their stunts they pull. Sorry, not getting it.
And now when Alex Padilla is arrested for a crime he commits on camera, the defense is, how dare you? He's a senator, for God's sake. Again, people who are actors, people who are only capable of reading from a script, aren't fazed by this obvious inconsistency. They don't think, they just do what they're told. This Alex Padilla stunt was scripted in every conceivable way. After it happened, the talking point went out to every politician and media personality.
Yep.
This is how they plan to sell it to the public. Check it out.
And anyone that knows Alex Padilla knows one thing about Alex Padilla. He's one of the most mild-mannered, decent people you'll meet.
I know Alex Padilla to be among the most mild-mannered of colleagues.
And Jamie is right. He is very mild-mannered. He's not the type of person who would necessarily do this.
People who may not be familiar with Senator Padilla, he is one of the most mild-mannered, nerdy, soft-spoken.
Who thinks of him as anything other than a reasoned, reasonable, mild-mannered senator.
There we go.
That's a montage that was put together by Western Lensman, and it's important to show it, because it's actually encouraging in a way. It's more evidence that the propagandists in government and in the media are really, really bad at their jobs. They're not capable of thinking on their feet. If they were capable of independent thought, they'd realize how badly Padilla had bombed this stunt, and they ditched the script. But because they're essentially robots, all they can do is press on.
I love the Padilla pronunciation. The Alex Padilla pronunciation is classic. But here, this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I've been talking about. I loved this, because I finally found a clip of someone who had got all the clips together and put them all side by side and played them back to back. The same exact talking points over and over and over and over and over again. You can't write that off as coincidence. You can't write that off as anything but exactly what it is. Scripted, sent out messages that are going directly to DNC members and DNC Democrat elected officials and mainstream media, who all have to be in lockstep. They all have to be in lockstep with each other to make sure that message gets through. Because, all of us out here, we're too stupid to ever figure out what the actual situation is unless we have them tell it to us. But unfortunately, when you see it like that, it's kind of, I'm sorry, guys, it loses its impact when you have to ram it down our throats like that. So I don't care how how many of you that know him in the Senate find him to be a nice little mild-mannered guy? I'm sure the woman who punched the guy from ICE in the head was just a sweetheart too. You know, I'm sure that there was nothing that her colleagues would have to say about her, but just wonderful comments about how she's so kind-hearted. She's so kind-hearted, she showed up at an ICE facility and demanded they let her in, and then when they didn't, she started trying to force her way in and punched one in the head. And then they, of course, jumped into position to defend. How dare you? It's because she's black, isn't it? No, it's because she punched an ICE officer. Anyway, so it's just paper-thin arguments, but when you see it for what it is, it's kind of scary, because who is the person who is the puppet master in this situation? Who is the one sending out the orders? Who's the one that's got the script? Who's the one that it? I would guess it's got to be a staffer, because it sounds like something that was written by definitely someone who's not actually always out in front of the cameras, but somebody that is thinking as like, well, what would I want to hear if I was hearing this? And the problem is that maybe you would want to hear that, but you wouldn't want to hear that exactly the same way over and over again from every single source you watch. So, because it would demonstrate completely genuine, non-debatable amounts of what is it? Like the whole individual importance of individuality and diversity and all this. Like that is the farthest thing from diversity and individuality you'll ever see. I don't care what they look like; they sound exactly the same. And why? Because the Democrat Party demands that they sound exactly the same, pure and simple. Because they are so paranoid. I mean, they are in terms of polling right now. I've never seen a political party in the United States, at least, with an approval rating or a lower opinion of just a party's general state, lower right now than it is for the Democrat Party, because everything they're doing is a swing and a miss. Like they can't get anything to get any momentum or get any steam. And as I said last time, I know exactly what they're thinking, and I'm sure you do too. You know exactly what they're thinking. They're thinking like, hey, let's set the table now, because hopefully when we can get back to the Senate and hopefully the House as well in the next Congress, we'll have all this material ready to set the table for the impeachment hearings. And you know, they're trying to really push that hard right at the beginning, so they have plenty of material from now until the midterms next year. But that's why, because they have no other move. They have no other move. But it's really obvious that just by the actions, like I'm going to move on to the description of the auto pin situation right now. But before I do, there's something kind of similar in the way that the reaction from Democrats in this hearing, as they did for a hearing a little while back. I think I may have played it. I think I did. If I didn't, though, I can easily describe it anyway. But it's a hearing on trans affirming care for minors, which, if you didn't hear the ruling from the Supreme Court, it finally came down to the state's decision to be able to make that choice for themselves. And that's fantastic news, because, you know, there's going to be states that still are going to pass the legislation, but at the bare minimum, states that want to pass it and states where the population of the state demands with enough pressure that the local officials there take it seriously, that we don't want we don't want butchers in surgery rooms with our children cutting off healthy body parts because they convinced our children that they're not in the right body. We don't want that. We want the laws to protect children by making sure that this gender-affirming care BS is going to actually finally end. So the Supreme Court decided that, yes, states can make that decision, and it's not going to infringe on any civil rights or anything like that. And so they were, of course, naturally very, very angry at this result. But even so, the level of the the level of commitment they had to that subject, as barbaric as it is. And the thing is that when they went through, this was what I was leading to. We played a clip where there's a video clip they wanted to play in Congress of this supposed surgeon who was so excited about the new frontier available to people with gender-affirming care and surgeries, and the guy literally admits that they're treating children like a guinea pig generation to, in his words, quote, find what works and find what doesn't. Like, he literally is discussing about how that's what they're doing in surgeries right now with children, trying to find out what works and what doesn't work. So, you know, that, wow, nice. I'm so glad that, you know, you're able to do that, but there's still not really any reason that that he would actually have that would make sense for why people under the age of consent for joining the military, smoking, drinking, going to R-rated movies on their own. Well, I guess you could do that depending on... Well, you can actually do that right about the same time as you can go into Iran for, you know, if you're a devout Islamic believer in the country, that he's not going to hassle you. He won't hassle you. And we're talking about, was it Gavin Newsom in that clip? I'm not sure. Anyway, the point was that, no, it wasn't Gavin Newsom. There was some guy, he's interviewing the doctor. But anyway, the important part is that as they're showing this clip, Democrats were kicking and screaming. They didn't want this clip to be shown. They were dead set against it. They did not want it to be shown. And so they had to take a vote on it. And because there was a conservative majority, they all voted that they wanted the clip to be played. Clip was played. And as they hit play to start the clip, every single Democrat in the House that's at this hearing stands up and walks out of the room. And they must have had either one of their staff members or somebody else let them know when it was over, because as soon as it was over, they all strolled right back into the room to make sure that they could, you know, ask their ridiculous questions like they were some sort of important it just... It was just something that was, like, metaphorically so perfect for everything that goes on. Bury your head in the sand. Don't think about it too much. Forget about the ramifications. Forget about these people could be screwed up for life. And forget about the fact that, who was it that... we talked about Ami Horowitz's documentary of the No Kings protests and riots, and... just about anybody he asked about shoes were very knowledgeable about that. But not so much when it comes to any other footwear. I guess socks are something that are easy enough for them to understand. But it's just like, okay, so you want there to be a penalty in between shots of that you're taking out of people that you have no idea what's going on in their life. You would much rather be there to take your shots and and not have anybody respond. I get it, but like the reality of the idea of that happening is so ridiculous and more or less an absolute complete disgrace as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, this is nothing new. This is what they do all the time. They deny, and then meanwhile, when they're in the presence of the actual people that could cause an issue of some kind, and yeah, it's like if you are refusing to engage with the reality of the situation, you don't really care about the people involved. You don't care about anyone's lives you ruin. You don't care about anything like that. You just care about spreading your ridiculous concept of children as guinea pigs, once again, for your sick alteration of the body experiments, and this generation that is that has already spiked in support is going to start to trend downward until it's pretty much gone again. Well, I can say at least from my end, it's not such a bad thing. But anyway, so that brings me to the next job, and these videos from the House and from the Senate. It sucks commenting on these because it's always a reminder that like these are the people we have that are supposedly there to represent the people that elected them, and I got everything of what they're doing down except for the defense part. Where is the defense that that you decided was okay? That's good. I'm going to use that. And how do you do it with this? Because it's just non-stop, never-ending, incomplete, and not at all consistent with what you would expect somebody actually experiencing something difficult or something that really challenged that really challenged your worldview and your vibrato resoundingly. So it's a shame, but yeah, it's just, I mean, you'll never get that back, so I guess yeah, jeez, it's hard to freaking come. It's hard to kind of pinpoint on these things and know exactly what the right way to describe it is, because I can only describe it for what it is in very blatant ways, only a number of times, because it's just, in my opinion at least, I think it's pretty damn obvious when we're seeing it happen. But and here's another example. So this is just, and by the way, this is the only time I've seen him go on to a program like a Joe Rogan type program, where he's actually on Joe Rogan in this clip. Right, not this clip, but the clip that's used to oh, you're gonna have no idea what I'm talking about probably on this one. But anyway, it just illustrates exactly what I mean. These things are not there to actually get at the truth. They're there to make soundbite clips that CNN can put up. And we have that in spades in this next part, because there's every talking point under the sun that's mentioned yellow or golden yellow or whatever it might be. And I just need to basically like melt it so that I can get the the segments I need. Anyway, but let me see if I can find the right one. Let's see. Oh, yeah, and good. I left Senator Padilla up on the screen. Not because I want to see Senator Padilla again, but because he's got his suit on right now. He's got his suit on, and for somebody that just got bashed in the head with something from the food storage area, I can't. But anyway, I think I can start here because this is a. That's for. Let me just see what else do I have here. Well, okay. We'll start with this one. This one is probably the most frustrating because I can't stand. Well, hold on. I'll say that for just a second. Let me go to the more interesting. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this one. So they have actually someone who's very very well read on the Constitution, including segments about the executive branch and how and under what circumstances it's necessary for a president to authorize by signature the importance to never let what's the other one that's really well, okay, we'll just go into it and we'll kind of cover them as we go. I got about 3 clips on this one because, like I said, these are so. I mean, this is cathartic right here. This is really actually healing because I see this as a way to kind of notice, like, wow, everybody was right all along about the fact that even when Speaker Johnson came into the White House and was confused why the president was asking about something he supposedly signed into law, and he feels like that was being a president who was responding to what the people wanted, and you can make an argument about that, although you probably won't be able to do too well. But at least you can make the argument. And in the other case, he just grabs a watermelon, puts it in a bag, and takes it away. And I forgot how heavy those things are, like when you're trying to carry one of those and a bunch of other stuff. But is there any... Oh, they might have that. Yeah, but anyway, I'll check that out. Anyway, so we got that. And then there's a handful of people speaking about what, like speculating, what in the hell is going on here? What is this guy doing? This is... but it's just go left. Okay, got it. So anyway, let's go ahead and go with this one. This one is We'll save that one for a little bit later. This one is, we'll start with Senator Padilla in his own, Senator Padilla, in his own description of what he thinks ICE is doing and how they're going about it. And there's no questioning, as judging as someone who came from a family that was pretty into hunting and pretty much into a lot of outdoor sorts of activity, even including me back then. If you don't believe me, because I'll have to try and find a way to get those asshole monsters off me. But yeah, so this is a tight corridors. It's just how does that make geez, it's just not good. Yeah. Okay, well, here we go. Let's go ahead and go with this one first. We'll start here. I'm sorry I keep saying that, but let's just start with this. Because this is a good, there's shorter segments of a bigger discussion, except for I think the very last one. Yeah, this is pretty creepy when you come and actually think about it. But anyway, so let's see what's got Jocelyn Ngari or Ngari or whatever the hell her name is. Let's see how they're doing without the added benefit. I mean, they had to memorize their lines. That's a tough one. But yeah, here we go. It's like it's absolutely impossible for us to separate from the from where our childhood fantasies were kept, and this is important. Of course, it's important. I'm sure it's so important that you don't even tell people how to savor. You don't. Okay, you have to. Yeah, you have to do that. Okay. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and do this. This is how long is this one? Because then after this, there's only a couple more. I was going to do a little bit shorter of an episode today, considering it's late and it's mostly just kind of follow-up stories today. But and there's one that's really interesting. I was going to close with, but we'll get there in just short order. But here we go. Okay, this was the one I was looking for. All right, we'll just jump right into that.
Senator Corbin, Senator Schmidt, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning about how the cover-up of President Biden's
That's right.
mental
This is the opening statement
endangered
from
America's national security and undermined the Constitution. The U.S. Constitution vests executive power in a single person, the president. At the founding, the president exercised the executive power through only a small group of trusted advisors and personnel. In fact, President Washington had a 4-member cabinet. Today, the president directs a Leviathan executive branch with 15 cabinet departments and at least 4 million full-time executive branch employees. The executive branch proliferation has a single source of democratic legitimacy, that by order of U.S. Constitution's Article 2, the president is both elected by the American people and vested with the executive power, all of it. Traditionally, the president...
Just real quick, you remember the other day how I was talking about how when it comes to the branches of the government and how many people don't know the 3 branches of government, so people were like under the impression when they know nothing that the military is a brand of what do you say, of anyway, yeah, it's just basically it's a symbol that we wear. It's so made of pride, but what this guy's talking about when they had the supposed woman who was coming up to be approved for being a drone, operations. What would the A stand for? I don't know, but it in charge of like. But she was no. She was just there for confirmation of the judge, but she couldn't remember what Article 2 was. She couldn't remember what Article 3 was. I don't know if there was an article of the Constitution she was familiar with. She couldn't answer any of the questions about that. But anyway, it was just funny that she couldn't. The President of the United States was the one who had nominated her for to be a district court judge, and she couldn't remember what Article 2 was and what it was about. Which, in case you're lost, that would be the president and where his powers come from and what they entail and what they don't entail. And unfortunately, for these people, it didn't entail like the ability to have a day of not being harassed by a bunch of cops for wearing hats for some of the people who are so strongly in favor of President Trump's plan. But the people that Biden nominates, they don't even know the articles of the Constitution, let alone how to follow them correctly. But anyway, let's get back to this. And then the Republican witness, he knows all the branches and all the provisions of the duties of those branches pretty much verbatim and can repeat them anytime. That's freaking wild. But anyway, I'll get back to it. I remembered that question where I was trying to remember for so long there. I finally, oh yeah, there was that lady who had no idea what due process actually is, and she thinks it's this. She thinks it's a super big important thing where we're gonna make sure we catch out now and get it right. This guy's just trying to tell everybody what to do, not what to do, but how the Constitution was written and what lines are there to make sure that people don't step out of that, cross it, and by extension screw over the United States in some way. But the left doesn't care too much about that part anymore. So, but Senator Kennedy did, and that's why he kind of made her look pretty bad. But Ted Cruz was maybe he was also a little bit trigger happy or something with it when it comes to a camera, because I know there's none in my name, and it's perfect for situations like this because it cleans all the. Never mind. Hey, let me get back to this guy. This is the caliber of the witnesses for the conservative side, though, as opposed to the witnesses on the Dem side that don't even know what the executive branch is.
The president takes positive actions and authenticates those actions through his signature. His signature is required for the most significant actions he may undertake: to sign an executive order, to take any action invested in him by the Constitution, as in granting a pardon, and to take the most important action of all, to sign a bill into law. In all these cases, the president's signature is itself the protection of democratic principle. When the president signs, he communicates his assent and endorsement of the action he takes. The auto pen is a device that signs the president's signature to a document.
Here we go.
The Oversight Project, of which I am a board member, has discovered that the Biden White House deployed an auto pen to affix President Biden's signature to pardons, prison commutations, executive orders, and presidential proclamations. The Oversight Project's research has found that the Biden White House first deployed the auto pen to affix President Biden's signature to a proclamation on day 5 of his administration, and that there were at least 3 different auto pen signatures in use throughout President Biden's tenure in the White House. In June 2022, the Biden White House began deploying the auto pen to sign clemency warrants and executive orders. Auto pen use skyrocketed from there. We found that of the 51 clemency warrants issued during the Biden presidency, over half, 32 in total, were signed with an auto pen. And these include some of the most controversial acts of clemency of the Biden presidency, including death row commutations and the preemptive pardons of members of the Biden family, Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and more that were issued in the final days of the Biden presidency. We reviewed President Biden's schedule and his publicly available media and were unable to find any record of President Biden's personally approving these actions, such as a statement issued by the president himself to reporters.
Yeah, I wonder
In addition,
why,
we found that the Biden White House used the auto pen to affix President Biden's signature to clemency warrants and executive orders while the president himself was in Washington, D.C. for at least some of that day, and thus was presumably available to sign important executive actions. Finally, we found multiple days where President Biden wet signed a bill into law, but used an auto pen to issue an executive order or for other important executive actions. The Biden White House's widespread use of an auto pen to affix President Biden's signatures to documents that exercise executive powers belonging solely to the president poses significant constitutional, legal, and practical considerations. Once the president's signature is copied and loaded into the auto pen, the machine can sign documents as the president himself would. To be blunt, by using the auto pen, anyone can sign documents as the president himself. Now, to be clear, I'm not here today to suggest that the auto pen is bad. It's just technology. I'm here today because
I heard that, and I really loved that line. So.
And whether the auto pen was used to usurp presidential power or to conceal the president's decline. As the sitting president's mental acuity declined, potentially to the point of incapacitation, his administration's expansion of the powers of the presidency raises more questions than answers. Any investigation of this matter should focus not only on whether President Biden directed or authorized subordinate staff to take action in certain instances, but whether he had the capacity to do so at all. The 25th Amendment lays out clear procedures for what to do when the president is incapacitated. It was carefully drafted and informed by our nation's history. The Biden administration ignored it all to aggrandize executive power and push the country further in their preferred ideological direction. It is our obligation at this point to get to the bottom of these issues and to ask the important question as to whether or not the auto pen and other devices were used to cover and obscure President Biden's mental decline, undermining our national security and also the Constitution. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning.
Right on time.
Jeez, that is, and there you go. That's some creepy and scary stuff right there, right off the bat. But it gets worse because I don't know if I played the clip with the statistics on it, but you know, when it comes to the auto pen, every president has used it when there's been. Every president has used it since it's become available for use, as far as the ability to. Geez, why keep drawing blanks? I don't know. Do the same thing with Mr. Walls. Anyway, so this is one of those situations where it's like, look at how you got Jake Tapper's book, which, by the way, that backfired so badly, and I still hear so many people still talking about that whole idea where, wait a minute, you knew all this and you didn't tell me or anything, and so it's just. It's just, there's no way that you can look at that and be like, yeah, that seems right. Yeah, that seems right. Yeah, it seems right. Well, nothing seems right in these situations, and it's because it obviously is not the way that's supposed to be used. It's supposed to be used in a way where the president authorizes the use of auto pen, and because he's away from the country, and he can't actually affix his signature to a vlog. Why did I say vlog? A law, or as a incoming missiles or incoming piece of delivery. You know, who knows what people end up going for at this point. But we have one more of this, something like this, and then we'll move on to the last thing, because this is just too tempting to go on without hitting this at this point. Ted Cruz, and like I said, I'm sorry, I don't want to get embroiled in this right now because it's too contentious at the moment. I still want to sit on it a little bit longer. I kind of made my mind up about the situation, but I just want to make sure I know I have a little bit more of an ability to sneak through areas that you couldn't get into because they're they're not destroyable walls, they're invisible walls. But and sorry to get all nerdy out on you guys, but first of all, that it's behind the security door at all. That part's kind of strange, just because it's a blind spot to every other aisle except for. Anyway, Ted Cruz goes into the stats of not just the auto pen, but about how much they're willing to protect the use of the auto pen. Like, come on, you guys. Anyway, so here's a clip of Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, or who? No. It's, like I said, it's Ted Cruz. That's right. It's Ted Cruz going over some stats and information about the auto pistol, how it works, and why would they want to take it out of circulation? Well, explained pretty well in this clip. So here, let's jump into it. Where is it? Yeah, it is. Okay, there we go. But anyway, let's get to this one. All right, that's right. I just put Cruz, I think, so it should be. I don't want to have to do this going one by one, but I think I might have to do that. Hold on just a second. Let's see. I know I saved it in here. It's got to be in here somewhere. Oh, wait. I know where. There. Yep, that was right. Gosh. I always forget about that little simple fact that a lot of the times when it's a game, it's easier to find on actually, I took some other ones out, so it'll be fine. I was going to say I ran out of USB ports, but no. I took some stuff out, so it's fine. We got it. USB ports. Okay. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay. All right, here we go. We got Senator Ted Cruz lined up and ready to go, and
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And there we go. Okay, full screen it and turn the desktop audio on. Oh, it was on. Okay. Here. This one. I think that's about it. Yeah, that's about it. Okay. Okay, there we go. And it's starting right now. There we go. Alrighty. This NPC is saying that. There we go. Okay. All right, here we go. Ready? And oh no, not quite yet. We gotta switch screens. Here we go. Now this one. There we go. We got volume. Yeah, we're good. Okay.
The Biden administration may go down in history as the most brazen constitutional fraud in American history. A Potemkin presidency fronted by a failing puppet with staffers behind the scenes.
He's going in for blood on this one, man.
This is not political hyperbole. The American people saw it with their own eyes during the June 2024 debate. Numerous times, Biden stood frozen behind the podium, mouth agape, eyes frozen and unblinking. When he did speak, his words were confused and disjointed. I said that night, this is the most consequential presidential debate in history because it will result in one of the two candidates being removed from the ballot. That was exactly right. And following that debate, the Democrats recognized the collapse. They pulled out their knives and took out President Biden like Caesar on the Ides of March. For all of their strutting about, protesting that they support democracy. Not a one of them gave a damn about democracy when they pulled Biden off the ballot and dropped Kamala Harris in without a single Democrat primary voter voting for him. And you know what? Not a single Democrat is here today because not a single one of them gives a damn about the fact that they lied to the American people for 4 years. They knew. Every one of them knew that Joe Biden was mentally not competent to do the job. The White House press secretary, she knew when she stood in front of the American people and lied
that one's a tough pill to swallow.
And over and over again. And they're not here because they can't defend themselves. It wasn't a surprise. For 4 years, the White House hid President Biden from Republican senators. Would not let him meet with us. He served 40 years in this body. We all know him. And they deliberately lied. And by the way, Jake Tapper had a bombshell book exposing the incredible scandal that Biden's mental decline was covered up by Jake Tapper.
I love that line
right there. It's a Yiddish word, chutzpah. And that truly is chutzpah. How dare we lie and cover up what we all knew? Now, I have been asked literally 1,000 times by Texans, who was running the country? And I'm going to give you the most terrifying answer. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And not a single Democrat here cares. The most telling proof of Biden's decline came with the signature of the president, the symbol of executive authority that was outsourced to a machine. Mr. Wold, you're a lawyer who served in the White House counsel's office. You understand the gravity of presidential action. Does the president's signature carry legal and constitutional weight under Article 2?
Yes.
Is the act of signing an executive order or signing a law or granting a pardon a delegable duty of the president?
So in that opinion in 2005 from OLC, they said essentially that an auto pen could be used by a subordinate, but the president's determination as to sign the document can never be delegated.
Can that authority be transferred to a staffer or machine without the president's explicit authorization?
Never.
And if you look at the statistics are stunning. In 2021, President Biden issued 78 executive orders. None were signed with an auto pen. That first year of the presidency, Biden, I suppose, was relatively lucid, and 78 executive orders he signed by hand. The second year, however, we see the auto pen emerge. The first auto pen executive order was issued on July 15th, 2022. After that day, 100% of the executive orders issued in 2022 were signed by an auto pen. In 2023, Biden issued 24 executive orders. 16 were auto penned. In 2024, Biden issued 19. 14 were auto penned. In 2025, Biden issued 14 executive orders. Every single one was auto penned. Mr. Wald, let me ask you as a legal matter, if there's a law that's passed both houses of Congress and it goes to the White House, and a staffer auto pens signing that law without the president's authorization, is that law legally passed and signed into law?
No.
If an executive order is issued and a staffer auto pens it without the president's authorization, is that executive order legally binding?
No.
And if a pardon is issued from the President of the United States and a staffer auto pens it without the president's authorization, is that pardon legally binding?
No.
Under the Biden White House, the ceremonial song, Hail to the Chief, was effectively replaced with Hail to the Pen. And it was an outright assault on democracy. And
just real quick, I'll just make mention. It wasn't just replaced with Hail to the Pen. I don't know if you guys ever caught this, but I think I touched on it, but I know a lot of other places talked about it several times. The song dedicated to the First Lady, and it was obviously wasn't Hail to the Chief. It was something to do with bathing the chief or something, and then you have to cook the chief food, and it's just, hey, this guy sounds pretty useless to me, I guess, but if you guys say so, I'll try and figure out what is going on here. It just seems like not a coincidence, but it just seems so stupid to do everything that way. But anyway, I just wanted to remind you guys of that little extra treat we got the last administration, because they didn't like Kamala Harris recommending Joe Biden. That just did not seem right. So anyway, let's get back on the trail. And there's not much left for this one anyway, so here we go. Let's, oh, I didn't do, yeah, no, never mind. All right.
Every reporter covering this ought to ask, why doesn't a Democrat care? We heard about the moral responsibilities of a staffer. How about an elected senator who knows damn well that if we get into a war and Iran is preparing to fire a nuclear weapon at the United States, that the commander-in-chief is busy playing with his Jell-O and is not competent to defend ourselves and every member of the cabinet, the chief of staff, the press secretary, and the members of Congress who lied about this on a daily basis with the press's complicity, they are all responsible for subverting democracy.
President is busy playing with his jello. I can't help but just love that line. I don't want this to be a super long episode, so I think I'll just, what I'll do is I will skip ahead to the last sort of thing I was going to talk about. Oh, I'm in the right thing. Yeah, okay. So wait, where did I go? Oh. That was it. Where is it? There we go. Because this has been a fairly laid-back episode for the most part. I'll keep it that way in this session, and then we'll talk about the more bigger issues next time, which I only got 2 episodes in this week, granted, but since tomorrow's Sunday, I'll just tell you guys, I am going to use my Sunday off rule to take tomorrow and get some stuff together. I'll tell you why in just a minute, because I'm going to finish up, and then I got one thing to let you guys know about before the end of the show. Kind of I don't want to make it a big deal or anything, but just some news about the show that I think is important to discuss, because I want you guys all to know what's going on and why. So, but anyway, last thing is geez, I keep bumping the mic. I don't know why I keep bumping the mic. Oh, this way. There we go. Well, I guess I could stick with some of the stuff I was meaning to stick with, I guess. You know, honestly, yeah, that is a good idea. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever played a Jordan Peterson clip on the channel before, so this should be interesting. There was a episode of Jordan Peterson's live show on Daily. I don't mean to be having a bunch of Daily Wire shows on. I don't even really have that much. I'm kind of indifferent to Daily Wire these days, both pro and con, except for a couple of people, which were jeez. That's right. That was how we did that. Anyway, yeah, this just essentially is a pact that. Well, hold on. Let me. Not a pact. A discussion discussing how. Well, Jordan Peterson's talking to Oliver Anthony, who, if you don't know the name offhand, he's most well known for that song, Richmond, North of Richmond, which was, it kind of took YouTube and online media by storm for a while, and there's a lot of hardcore kind of conservatives that were more old school, because it's got some kind of country music sort of roots to it, and you can tell that when you hear what he says in this episode he kind of grew up listening to. And what's awesome is Jordan Peterson listing off a couple of like he name drops Johnny Cash and Hank Williams, which of course are 2 legends of freaking country music, especially that transformative time in country music, in the same time rock and roll kind of was transitioning as well. But in this case now, the newer transition is Also coming late for country music, because it doesn't usually come for country music as fast as it would for a more unified set of messages. But I remember he really didn't want the song because a lot of conservatives were listening to the concept of just how like disillusioned you can get to what's going on in any session of the on Capitol Hill in general. But it was more about the concept of not just the country, but the American citizens losing a sort of sense of unique. Yeah, I'll try this one and see how it goes. But yeah. So anyway, and there's a really interesting exchange during this discussion about. There's several, but there's one that's really important. It's sort of comparing and contrasting the concept of I don't know if it's gonna. Oh yeah, well. Okay, there we go. Anyway, yeah. So this is a combination of talking about how that first success was really unexpected, and he didn't really know what was going to end up coming of it. But Jordan kind of chimes in, and I think the key point here that's really important is the significance of music in life in general, and how it is a force for clarity. It's a force for a sort of milk, just the nutrients you would get from like milk or something. Nobody likes to drink milk. You drink chocolate milk. But, and I'm sorry, this sounds really off topic, but the point is that everyday American kind of life becoming so difficult to navigate because of the amount of stressors that are constantly surrounding everyone, and not wanting to be a part of that, and the difficulty in not wanting to be a part of that. But in my opinion, personally, when I hear that sort of thing, it feels like to me like somebody who is already pretty good at understanding the reality of the situation isn't always just kind of running around like every single town one by one and not being able to find exactly what it was that you've been abandoned here, but yeah, you can't really know these things until you're in the thick of it, and when you're in the thick of it, it's harder to see things clear, and it's you end up making what would normally be a pretty rockman style of music that I personally didn't really appreciate until I really heard it, and then when I heard So anyway, let's just let me just put on the clip, and then I don't think it's super long. It's just about 5 minutes, I think. But yeah, it's really it's really pretty insightful in a lot of ways when you think about the subjects, because it brings out the best and the worst in people. Just the Clockwork Orange, and how the main character / serial killer is almost as addicted to killing everything you find there, and taking all of it and then just not thinking about it again. It's like, I probably am 22, but anyway, so let me go to there we go. Okay. Yeah, it's up at the top, right? Yeah. Huh. There you go. Okay. We have. The only concern, by the way, well, that's discussion for another day. But I think I just saw it, and no, wait, should I? Okay, there we go. Here's the. Oh man, very good mileage. Okay. Anyway. And there we go. Okay, there it is. All right, let's get this last clip playing, and then we'll. And unfortunately, no, I'm not going to pull a clip of Hassan Piker out during Hassan Chop on anything. It's just, I'm just going to have Alpha and Omega come in. Yeah, it's funny. What is this? There we go. Okay. Oh, never mind. Okay. Whoa, what needs to be updated? I have no idea what that was. Okay. Oh, there's our other problem. Okay, now that's out of the way. All right. There we go. There it is.
I'm sure there's a way I can conceptualize this to have more impact, because that's the importance of the song to begin with, is the impact it had. It somehow broke beyond the political front that has like almost encapsulated every part of our society today, not just in North America, but really globally. Like the message resonated with people.
This is a bigger point.
In all types of different cultures and countries. It's like this phenomenon of politics sort of almost parasitically capturing the way we think about everything. That's a global thing. That's not just a North American thing at this point. And it's happening very quick.
Okay, yeah, okay. So two things on that. Well, okay, first of all, one of the things that's happened, I think, is that the sacred has collapsed into the profane. And so the political has now become sacred. You have to have a space for things that are sacred so they stay out of the political. And everything has become too touchy to talk about because everything political has become religious. And that's really not a good thing. It's part of the reason that we need that a religious foundation isn't optional. I know you talked about that a little bit with Rogan. Yeah. Now, the other thing that's interesting, you said you don't want to go just to a stadium and shout out lyrics and let everybody get drunk and go home. And, one of the things I've also seen that's unfortunate is that many of the artists I've talked to, and these were often people who had stellar, like international careers, they're afraid, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily the case with you, but I'd like to talk about it with you. They're afraid that their mere art isn't good enough, given the importance, let's say, of all the political and maybe religious upheaval there is in the world. But I actually don't think that's true. I don't think, like, I've gone to a lot of concerts and I've watched the kind of quasi-religious nature of a great concert, and I actually don't think there's anything more important that an artist can do than, in your situation, for example, is to give the best damn concert you possibly can, and I can see you're torn between that to some degree, because you say, well, you don't want to go and shout out a bunch of lyrics so that people can get drunk and go home. But then that what you've done has spoken to many people very deeply all around the world, and that what you've done was a genuine expression of what you really believe to be true. And I would say that if you go to a concert and what you do is you really sing what you believe to be true, there actually is no better service that you can possibly do to people, no matter what it is that you're doing. Like, I don't think there is anything, except for what's truly religious, I don't think there is anything that supersedes genuine art, not in terms of potency and truth.
I 100%
think
agree
you're
on
seeing
that one
that
too.
because of what happened in relationship to your song. And I think that's also partly because of that other point you made, which is, and the same with the song about sobriety, is you're actually writing your songs. I think Hank Williams did this, and Johnny Cash too, unbelievably effectively. The genuine songwriters, they're not writing to max out the algorithm, and they don't have contempt for the audience. That's not what I mean. But they're not doing it for their own fame. They're doing it to express something approximating the truth in the way that they see fit. With you, that's obviously going to be musical. So one of the things I would say is, don't be thinking there's any higher purpose you can serve than the genuineness that you bring to your art, man. Good musicians I think people die without good music. It's so important. We have no idea how important it is. It's how
I agree.
Key it is to humans.
It's obvious to me that music is, every culture that we know of, whether they're, music is something that manifests itself in any society. And the more that people suffer, the more they lean on music,
Yes, that's
some of the
true,
best music's been written in the worst of times. So I definitely agree. Like, there's an element of healing to it. And one thing that I've noticed about the music industry, just now that I'm in the business, one of the things I've noticed is that we prioritize, as with a lot of things in art
this
now,
is the important part.
We prioritize through the system of the music industry. We prioritize what can make the most money, and not necessarily what can resonate with the most people or what's the most genuine and authentic. And so, like, in country music, now, I loved 90s country music as a kid. I remember riding with my parents and my grandpa and listening to, the Alan Jacksons and George Straits and Bubba Shot the Jukebox. And, like, those are just fun, like, just good songs. But somewhere country music, and I think music in general, has really lost a connection with people because it's become too commercialized.
That is 100% true, though, of all art, and that's why it's becoming increasingly hard to find art of any kind, really, that is not just this sort of prepackaged, very, very bland, almost identical clone of something you've heard before, just packaged slightly differently. And in the new frontiers, definitely when it comes to smaller, lesser-known music and smaller, lesser-known artists and of any kind. And I'm actually really kind of excited to see that, because it's a new frontier that hasn't actually been, it hasn't even been possible for that to succeed in any real sense up until the last maybe 10, 15 years at all, but it was still growing and growing throughout that time period as well. Now we're really in a period where I think it's going to be the dominant place to find. Like, I've noticed this in just about every kind of media that I'm interested in, whether it's, obviously being a big nerd and enjoying gaming and such, that is the same thing. There is a ton of great indie developers out there that are making amazing games. And then most of the mainstream developers are, even if they've made great stuff in the past, they're starting to revert back to what they think is as a formula that is going to be the most successful, and not one that is going to push any boundaries or make any interesting or compelling narrative statements or anything like that. It's just going to be a checklist where you're going to have to tick every box, and once you get those boxes ticked, yeah, it'll definitely sell good. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah. And I don't want it to tick every box. I want to see something different once in a while. Usually, most of the time now, because I think I've gotten my fill of things that are just constantly the same thing over and over again. And there's nothing left for that kind of artistic work to offer, really, I think, anybody anymore. And maybe some people, maybe people that are just very, very casual observers, but with something like music, with the properties it has discussed, like here, where it's like, it is a sort of, it's almost like a mini enlightenment, I guess you could call it. Sometimes you gain more in a session of listening to music than you do in any other situation in life, short of maybe meditation, if you practice meditation in that situation. But, and now I'm starting to rhyme, look at that, ridiculous. Anyway, I know that was way out of left field on the subjects we've been talking about, but I just had to get that one out because I saw that the other day, and it really was something I thought that was important to say because of how it's becoming almost dangerous in some cases to be too reliant on old IPs, old franchises, old remade movies that are coming back, remade TV shows that are being repackaged for something else or whatever, because even the old stuff now, it's got to include the LGBT community, it's got to include equal representation, it's got to include there's all these what would you call it? Values of particularly one political party that most of these people fall into, or at least the people that they work for fall into, that are demanding that you include this. And I think a lot of people have had to go along with it because even though they don't want to, it's like, okay, we'll include it as much as we have to, and then we'll use the rest of the time to kind of implement the rest of our vision and see how it happens. But the problem is that once you get that interjection, it destroys the focus you had before on the subject, number one. Number two, it makes it so that there's nothing at all that someone could say or do that would really be taken seriously enough, or even get yourself into a very bad place if you don't recognize the difference between things that genuinely speak to you and your situation in life, and what you're able to find really relieving for yourself, and what basically every episode is well, not episode, but basically what every type of entry into a certain genre or into a certain style of filmmaking or music writing or video game development or creative writing or a lot of I've got someone in my family who is very, very hooked on one of the war bands that is used in one of the tabletop games I've talked about before. And once again, big nerd, gotta admit that, I play all that stuff. But he's the guy in my family I'm talking about, someone who's very well read with historical subjects for the most part, definitely. And one thing that I've heard mentioned several times is how crazy it is that there's so many similarities between the state that past societies have been in and been able to either use as a point to springboard off of to make themselves far stronger, or it's been a point of contention that leads inevitably to a fracturing and the destruction of the area. And that's where it's like I'm not sure. I'm sure in one case there's plenty of. In fact, it's right here. The process, though, is one that is also just as important on the end of what reaches the person who's going to ultimately be listening to or watching or playing or whatever. They're the ones that are watching all the early release stuff. They're the ones that are watching all the information come to the forefront and be discussed, and have someone kind of going over why this is the action we've decided to take, and blah blah. But it's really difficult, even though if that's the case, to Well, either way, that's just the process. It has to play out. But hopefully, I think in this situation now, where there's been a lot of shifts over the last 5 years, especially, and I think if the Biden presidency and the 2 terms of Trump have done anything to the psyche of the American citizens, it's this. It's proven that no matter how someone is like essentially running a rally, so I had a good kind of point in there. Basically, and long story short, it's ultimately never been a more exciting time now to try and throw your hat in the ring and take something you think you are good at, or take something you enjoy doing at the very least. And early in the interview, Oliver Anthony has stated that he would. He talked about a gig at a church, and he said that he would. There was really cool open crucifix that was just painted solid black, and the concrete leading left was basically all black. But yeah, that's why I think ultimately you're going to find people are going to look for those kinds of things in those places, and the traditional places that people found anything of value, they're going to quickly kind of become so obsolete, except for to the most mindless, completely. And that's not to say that, that wasn't the case before. I still love a lot of more mainstream music from the 90s and 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Like it was still, there's still a great market there for a ton of stuff. But unfortunately, especially when you just had a bit. That is listening on the list. Anyway, but that's where I think hopefully we end up seeing most of the more exciting releases in any genre. Because I was just talking to this guy in line at the grocery store today and talking about more classic stuff, and we both had a bunch of different stories. But this is a guy I have no idea anything about other than what he talked about in line, and somebody I never would have guessed would have been that interested in the subject, but he was, and it was interesting to hear how many times he had the same kinds of feelings that I had about a certain subject. So, anyway, one last quick thing before I wrap it up for today. Just want to let you guys know this because this has been a long time coming, but I really want to thank the Rumble crowd on this one, especially. The Rumble crowd has been so incredibly good to me since I've been on this platform. But I'll say this, I'm going to be, I'm going to have to do a little bit of tweaking, and hopefully by Monday when I get back on, everything will be in place to be running this way. But I decided to go ahead and pull the YouTube channel as far as a platform to stream the show as well, and only stream the full show directly to Rumble, because two main reasons. Number one, there's just no audience on YouTube at the moment. No one sticks around. No one shows up. There's and even on Rumble, it's a slowly growing amount of people, but it is moving. And at YouTube, I have stayed stagnant pretty much since I started the channel. So it's wild to see that, because I never had any presence on Rumble. I talked about this before. I've never had any kind of presence on Rumble like I have on YouTube. I've started 3 channels on YouTube with 3 different themes and 3 different types of content. And this being the 4th now, seeing that it wasn't even close to the way it was before on YouTube, I decided that, you know what, the whole point was that on YouTube I kind of hoped that if there was any crowd there that was still around and was into any kind of longer form discussion content, that would be a place where people would still want to find video casts. And I've talked about this before. I eventually do want to have this show put up as both a live video cast and podcast at the same time. That's my ultimate goal, to hopefully have in place by the end of the year. But in the meantime, it's just kind of a waste, because I had to sacrifice using the streaming program I would prefer to use, because this is the only one I can get a plug-in for to run as streaming service that will do 2 platforms at once. And so, yeah, it's that's basically what the main crux of it is. As far as the YouTube channel, I'm not going to take it down. I am planning to try to kind of take smaller clips and do like basically Crowder does this, and of course there's a few other people that do this as well. Mostly the more conservative commentator kind of crowd does this, but they'll take one of the more popular segments from a show and or their opening part of the show and put that up, and and just state if you want to see the rest of the show, go to Rumble. Which I'm still cynical about things like that, but I think in this case that's obviously the only way you communicate the message. So and when sorry, as far as the YouTube channel goes, that's where I'm gonna try to I'll just have a recorded piece of the episode that covers some of the more important talking points, especially if something is it was able to get a lot more attention than other segments. I would be putting that up on YouTube as opposed to something more bland that no one was interested in. But also just because I just don't see there being a good future, especially for someone who is even right-leaning, like in my case, being kind of, I consider myself to be more center-right than anything else. I'm still not someone who's really firmly on one side or the other. My beliefs are usually pretty mixed, but in this day and age, I can't say I'm anything but center-right because it's definitely not aligned with anything that the left proposes to talk about. So that just leaves one other part where where's it going to go? Well, I've got 3 people right now, actually, that are interested in doing a guest appearance on the show, and also really, really excited about that. I'll let you guys know when to expect that coming up, because they're all 3 people that are, I would say, pretty interesting to hear from. They come from very, very different worlds, but they'll have a lot of interesting experiences that would be perfect for discussion on the channel as well. So working out the details for getting those people to come in and do a sitting discussion so that we can do a long-form show in whatever time period we want to have it in. But the only thing I'd say for that is just when something gets moved around here, it's like it disappears sometimes. But I think it's pretty safe to say in this case it'll be just moving from one place into another, not having to worry about not being able to put it up or put it. Geez. There was like one more description of it. Anyway, as is not, the description is not important. The important part is just that's what is going to be coming up. Like I said, on the next episode, hopefully that's what is in place. So thank you, YouTube, but it obviously is not a good fit there. And once again, thank you so much to the Rumble crowd, man. You guys have been extremely, extremely supportive just by your presence here. It's meant a lot. It's meant a hell of a lot, and it kept me going through the times where I thought that, what's the point? This isn't going to work. It's going to fall apart. I'm not going to be able to do it. The people that are still watching on Rumble, you guys are the ones that are keeping me motivated. So hopefully the shows that are going to be coming up will be a little bit more up to standard. And I mean, I don't think I put out anything that I would label as terrible, but there's been a few zingers that I've thought were really good shows lately. But for the most part, they've kind of been in some cases like, well, you can do better. Come on, you can do better. And I can. I also have, just to kind of put one last thing out there, the whole experience with going to try and figure out what is up with my my sort of drowsiness and sleeping problem that you guys have been privy to when I've fallen asleep even on stream before. I'm also kind of trying to remind myself of that part, and I hope you guys can understand and be not patient, but able to be able to recognize that, like I've said before, I'm not disappearing, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not going to be ending the channel under any circumstance that I can see that's foreseeable in the near future. But the issue with the whole falling asleep at random times and just not being able to stay awake, I've got to have that problem kind of pinned down, or at least figure out what I need to do to minimize the amount of times that ends up happening, because it's not just messing up things that have to do with the show, but just messing up things in general. Like tons of things just end up getting postponed or ruined because of me just happening to pass out at the worst possible times and not having a clue that I'm actually tired going into a situation, and yet same situation, end up just recognize, oh man, I'm passing out, this isn't gonna work. So I'm just gonna say I'm gonna try my best to not hold it against myself that that I've got to go through the process and figure out how that can be addressed in a way that hopefully makes the show more free to keep doing what it's been doing in previous sort of releases. But as of now, I just need to keep it in check that there may be some hiccups and some times where things don't go according to plan purely because of that one reason alone. But at the same time, I am aiming for a much more stable and consistent home that ultimately I want to make sure that it's comfortable, it's set up, it's ready to go. Everything I need is right here where I need it, and get to meet some interesting people along the way and hear some interesting stories, and hopefully my impressions and my take on situations is enough to be pretty interesting on its own, to hopefully be entertaining in its own right. So either way, though, thank you guys so much for once again being here to check out the show every time, and it's really been exciting for me to see the reaction from a lot of people. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys on Monday, hopefully. And until then, take care of yourselves. Have a fantastic Sunday, and I'll talk to you later. Till then, peace.
Now, I can't read it. There's no words there. To play us out. What does that mean? To play us out. What is for credits? I don't know what that means. To play us out. What does that mean? To end the show? Yeah. All right, go.